Kerry, it's the time of year when we look at bank covenants.
Yeah, it is. We've got our farmers bringing in the end of year books, or about to. And of course, under your bank covenants, you've got to have certain ratios you've got to meet. And if you don't meet them, then the bank can review your lending. And worst case scenario, they could actually pull the lending out if they weren't that happy.
So you're basically juggling slightly, massaging perhaps to let the bank know?
Yeah, we'll do the books, and then it's a case of saying, right, what are the covenants? So it could be that you've got to make sure you've got enough profit to cover your interest 2 or 3 times, or it could be that you've got to be within certain debt ratios. So we look at those and look at the results and see what impact they are. And if they're not met, and we know that the bank's a little bit scratchy because of the last season, we'll actually go ahead and sort of see if we can manipulate and put things into other periods, legally move things around, revalue things if need be.
The key word there was legally do it.
Yes, within the legislation there's a few mechanisms we can use. They're not normally used because you don't usually have these sort of things happening, like low dairy price, the drought, etc. But the last couple of years you've got to start thinking about it. So one example we've been doing recently is, if the farmer's got a huge fertiliser spend and it means they're potentially going to breach the covenant, we're saying, right, let's take it out of this year and move it into a future financial year. And it's perfectly legitimate, the legislation's there to do it. All you've got to do is basically notify IRD in writing that you're doing it.
That's interesting because, funnily enough, next season they probably won't be using much fertiliser because they won't have the cash flow to do so.
Exactly, so what we're doing is basically spreading those expenses out, so there's not a big hit in 1 year. We can spread it out over 2, 3 years, whatever we want to do, sort of thing. And it means that you can meet the bank covenants, but also you're not getting a huge loss in 1 year, you're sort of spreading that out over, hopefully, when things start picking up a wee bit as well.
That's interesting that when you do that sort of thing, that you are working with IRD and saying, this is what we're doing, and IRD are comfortable with that.
Yeah, I recently went to a seminar where there's an IRD representative, and I was talking to him during the tea break, and he actually encouraged us to do a lot more of it. He said, look, we know the farmers are out there struggling, let's see if we can both work together. We don't want to see them suffer, and we want to see them carry on, and he was giving us 3 or 4 other ideas that they're potentially coming up with for us, so it's quite cooperative out there with them at the moment.
It is going to be tough for banks because banks are looking at debt loads.
Yes, they are, and that's where these covenants and the percentages, etc., become absolutely crucial. In previous years, we haven't had to report them to the banks. I've got a couple of clients where the bank are actually saying, right, we want you to work those out for us and tell us what they are, and then we'll have a look at whether you're within them and sort of go from there. So the first step really is we're telling farmers to find out what the covenants are, because sometimes they just sign an agreement and get the money and carry on. They don't actually find out what the requirements are. Let us know as their accountant, and then we can make sure that they stick within them and the bank's also happy.
And where does cash flow come into this? Because you're talking about what's already been spent, aren't you?
Yeah, we're not talking about spending anything to meet the covenants or anything like that. It's just what's happened in the past and how we can make sure those results meet what is required of that bank.
Because it used to be a stage when you'd say, for goodness sake, start spending now because it's the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly. If you're looking at a huge tax bill, we'd say, look, start looking at your repairs and maintenance, that sort of thing. Now we're at the other end of the scale where we're looking at saying, right, you spend all this money, how can we get the best value in terms of the bank, etc., out of it for you?
Kerry, the other thing is low milk prices. I know we've been on it again, but what's the latest? What's the latest
Fonterra
advice?
have come out and they've got a guaranteed milk price scheme. It's been around 2 or 3 years, and we've got dairy farmers looking at it. And of course they're asking us the question, should they be in or out of it? Basically how it works is you lock a certain percentage of production and at a guaranteed price for the season, and that's what you get. If the price is going down and you've locked it in a sort of a higher price, you win. If the price starts coming back up during the season, you could potentially lose. So we're saying to our dairy farmers, look, there's no standard answer. We've got to sit down with each one of you and look at your farm, look at what your risk profile is. Some are prepared to take a huge risk that the price is not going to come up again, and so they'll grab it. But it does vary from farm to farm. And even if an owner's got 2 or 3 farms, they all could be doing different things.
So that's what I would call the futures market.
It basically is, yeah. You're taking a gamble that this season's going to be within the price range that Fonterra are offering, and it's not going to go above it.
It must be good for the accountants and B, the bankers, because they've got a guaranteed income.
Oh yeah, it gives you certainty. So you can say, right, we know this production is going to get this price, and so you can start sort of budgeting around that and have your fixed costs covered by that milk production. But if the price starts going up, that's when your bank will get a bit nervous because all of a sudden you're not getting the full value. You're getting that price and that's it. There's no sort of movement on that price.
So somebody who is sitting on a dairy farm at the moment, thinking about that price, you haven't told me what it is, but it's fine. They need to sit down with their banker and with you and a fortune teller.
Yeah, basically they do, yeah. They should be going into the accountant and sitting down and say, look, what's the price range that Fonterra are offering? How does that work for my farm? What does it mean? Looking at what their production's going to be, they've got to work that out first, and then come in, and then we'll have a look and see whether it's worthwhile doing it or not. Talk to 2 or 3 other people about what they're doing. Talk to your bank and see what they forecast the price is going to be in the next season, and go from there.
Because that's, once again, I'm not being negative, but you don't know what your production is going to be because we're talking about a drought.
Oh yeah, exactly. You've got to, well, what they're saying is you've got a certain number of cows, we know roughly what they're going to produce, and so you get a baseline production, and hopefully you stick to that. Most dairy farmers have got their target they're looking for, and so we're using that as a guide.
And then all you've got to do is to worry about things like power prices going up, supplementary feed prices going up.
Yes, yeah. Although power prices, we've got a couple where they've been able to lock in a fixed price deal for the next 2 or 3 years with the power company. Yeah, they've been able to negotiate it. So that's another option for dairy farmers as well.
You've just opened a floodgate of people who are now going to be contacting their electricity supplier.
Yeah, well, they should. These deals aren't on the table, widely known. But if you ask the question and say, look, I want to fix my price for the next 2 years, or I'm going to walk, they'll more often not go ahead and do something for you.
So once again, you're playing with the futures game.
You are, yeah. With power prices, there's almost a guarantee they're going to go up. So if you can lock it in for 2 or 3 years, then it's well worth doing so.
Very briefly, IRD, I know they're on the side of the farmers. They are working very closely to getting farmers to trade out, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they're not doing anything to put them under or anything like that. They're making sure they're doing what they can. If you can't pay your tax because you've got a cash flow problem, they're coming to the rescue and putting some schemes in place to help you spread it out over time. The key for them really is you're upfront and honest with them and tell them before you get too far in.
And how often have I said it, but for God's sake, do talk to your accountant and your bank manager and get your accountant to talk to IRD.
Oh, definitely, yeah. If you don't tell us, we can't do anything to help you. And we're here to help. We've got all the tools available that we can work in with your bank and the IRD and other farm advisors, whatever. We're there to sort of make sure you get ahead.
My problem was about that big when IRD contacted me compared to,
Yes.
And it was amazing after the guy had spoken to me and he said, I want to help you through this.
Yeah.
I just felt about 7 feet tall.
Yeah, well, they're there to be friendly. They're not as bad as what everyone thinks. Everyone talks about, they hit us with penalties and interest and that sort of thing. Yeah, they do if you don't do anything. But if you get in early enough, they do charge you interest still, but all those penalties that really add up quickly,
yeah,
they'll be waived or even not charged in the first place.
I have got a huge amount of respect and admiration for IRD because, they're not the ogre that we think they are.
No, not anymore. No, not. A few years ago when they had all the controversy, that certainly changed them, and now they're even more cooperative and trying to help the taxpayer get ahead.